So good evening. We're going to start with a public hearing before we go into the board formally. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with this because it is something that is prior to the board meeting. So I'm here to share the district-wide school safety plan with you this evening. And as you know, the basic premise for everything we do is based on these core beliefs. So it's our mission and our vision, but everything that we really focus on is ensuring that our students, our staff, and our community are safe. So tonight, as we go through the purpose of the district-wide safety plan, I'm going to highlight a few things. As you understand, this was a requirement that became part of the SAVE legislation a few years ago. So tonight's overview is really just to highlight the district level plan. We liken the district plan to an umbrella. The district plan would be the canopy, and then the respective building level plans are the stem of the umbrella. So I'm going to focus on these areas tonight, just as a general rule of thumb. I'm going to highlight those 6 categories for you. So in many cases, when it comes down to school safety, the first and foremost thing starts with our school personnel. So this basic chain of command is going to highlight for you the different areas that we expect people to partake in the safety planning and the execution of those safety plans. You know, one of the roles that I take on as the superintendent of schools is the chief emergency officer. I think it's important to point out to Board of Education and our public that safety is not just the job of a few, it's a job of everyone. You know, lately you've heard a lot of terms. If you see something, say something. If it doesn't feel right, chances are it's not. So I want to emphasize that it's everyone's job to keep our students, our staff, and our community safe. This basic flow of information is just to highlight the chain of command, to let you know that this is a fluid chain of command, and later on when we get into particular incidents, I will highlight for you the nature of that fluidity and why it's important to have that structure and order as a part of it. So the planning phase of our district emergency plan really is to help us execute effective and timely decisions. We're trying to entrust that our actions prevent harm, protect lives, property, mitigate damages, and in the event of an actual situation that we're able to restore order and aid in the recovery. Now, the district level plan, again, is comprehensive. It's encompassing of all the building level plans. The elementary, middle school, and high school have their own respective plans. Those are a little bit more intimate in detail, and those are not shared with the public. Many times we execute our emergency response plans through live drills, whether it's a go home early, a lockout, a lockdown, shelter in place, hold in place, or a full-blown execution. Per the law, we have to do 12 particular drills each year. There are 4 lockdown drills, and there are 8 fire drills that have to be executed. And we follow the incident command system for both training with staff and execution of those plans. What you see here is going through a basic checklist where we walk through our building-based safety walk. This is where we identify potential areas of risk. Every 4 to 6 weeks, building administrators will walk through the building with the school resource officer and maintenance staff to identify potential areas. This is a sheet we came up with a few short years ago, just as a way to identify problem areas and means of correcting those areas. The sheet is something that will probably continue to evolve as the year goes on, as we transfer over to a new emergency management reporting system and an application. Prior to this, though, it really was, you know, things that were pointed out may or may not have been addressed. So this, again, is very intentional, and every 4 to 6 weeks, the building level people walk, and twice a year, we expect that the district office staff will walk with those building administrators to identify things and ultimately correct those issues as they come up. So this is probably the #1 area in any plan, and it's also typically the area that we would say is probably most critical. It's the communication and the flow of information. It's imperative that we have the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels, because at any given moment, if we were to go back to that slide with the chain of command, you know, myself as the chief emergency officer may be consumed by a number of different things, and the protocols that we're working on are trying to establish different layers, different roles, different responsibilities, so that we keep that flow of information going. The incident command system and the protocols that we follow, those are based on national norms. It's also something that New York State recognizes. One of the most critical things for our particular district, and something that we're proud to say we've been at the forefront with in the region, has been changing over to the new TAP app. We're working on a new cloud-based application that should be able to turn around emergency information within 3 seconds. The nice thing about this particular application is that it's not just set up for your phones, it's set up for PCs, Chromebooks, laptops, smart boards, etc. This is also something that this particular software is going to be lined up and following the incident command system. And it's something that we hope to have fully implemented by October of this year. The other part really comes down to evaluating what we do. So you heard me mention a minute ago the number of drills that we actually go through each year, and then there are actual events. You know, you were called 2 weeks ago, we had an incident in this building where a false alarm was tripped, and that triggered an emergency response from first responders and school personnel. After every one of those incidents, and after every building-based safety walk, we huddle together to debrief to make sure that if there's something that we did well, we write that down. If there's something that we did poorly, we write that down as well. I think it's important that we, you know, highlight those shortcomings and address those, because in all honesty, a matter of a school crisis, and God forbid a school shooting, we need to have people prepared to think, because these scenarios are all based on what ifs, but we need to prepare for a system-wide catastrophe so that the incidents and people's response become part of muscle memory, and they just take over instinctively should every system fail at one time. The debrief, I think, is one of those things where, again, it's become part of our culture. It's something that I think commits people to future incidents and prepares them for a better and more well-trained response in the future. And that training that I just referred to really is ongoing and continuous. You know, we think about the multi-tiered system of support, the MTSS process, and a lot of times people liken that to just the academic side of things. In many cases, proactive approach to MTSS can mitigate your behavioral problems and start identifying solutions as you go through the process. I'm proud to say that the district has worked really hard on social and emotional learning activities, and that we've been doing a great job the last few years preparing our staff with the mental health first aid for students. Last year, and as part of an ongoing effort with our technology department, we're enhancing our cyber safety, our cyberbullying prevention programs. We're working with the state troopers to continue to offer staff development on cyber crimes against children. Cyber sexting and sexploitation have been prevalent the last few years across our state and across our country. So we're continuing to do more to educate our staff and therefore educate our students in our community about the dangers of social media, cyber exploitation, and things of that nature. Last spring, We were proud to put about 30 staff members through a training called Stop the Bleed, where staff members were trained that in the event of a school crisis, that they could apply a tourniquet and actually do just that, stop the bleed. Many times, those scenarios that are talked about school-wide at staff meetings are actually based on tabletop activities or particular events that have happened either in our district, in a particular building, or across the country, where we're preparing our staff monthly with scenarios to give them an opportunity to think and put them through a stressful situation where we give them a scenario and limit their time to 45 to 50 seconds, ask them to come up with a solution and then share out in a staff meeting. That's something that we implemented a few years ago, and we'll continue to expect that those are present because, again, you know, we need to condition staff at all levels to think in the event of a crisis situation. And then lastly, what I would say to you, this year, our October Staff Development Day on the 21st is going to have a heavy presence on school safety. And we are going back to the district level MTSS, and we will be offering a lot of things that are proactive because a lot of times in incidents of a school shooting, those students have been identified as struggling behaviorally throughout their academic career. So the more we can do to foster positive and strong relationships with our staff and mitigate or eliminate some of those incidents, we want to do that. So I know that was brief, and I know it's just an overarching look, but I'd like to turn it over and ask if there are any questions from the Board of Education or from anyone in the audience. I'll start with the board. Yes. The PowerPoint or the actual plan? The plan is. Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely give it to you in the Friday newsletter. So, and part of the logistics of our plan, you know, with staff turnover, identifying new building-based members, identifying new parents, we're implementing that, and we are in process of transitioning over to the TAP app platform, and we are putting that stuff into that digital warehouse. So there's both of those things that are happening. We went to a regional training. Lisa Brower, Eric Canuli, myself yesterday. We were working with Wayne Finger Lakes Bosons and the founder and owner of CLPS Security. And so we are in the process of starting that work now. Eric and Lisa will be doing an overarching presentation to the staff about what the TAP app entails and how it's going to benefit our community. So I know that's more than you asked for, but part of the reason why you won't get that complete thing is because it's in process. Yeah.
So like that's the TAP app, that's replacing the Safe School Helpline?
No, the Safe School Helpline is still going to stay in effect. That's one of those proactive things. We didn't identify all the things that we're doing, and we wanted to just be brief. And then the piggyback is the code of conduct. That's also obviously part of our safety plan in terms of proactive. The Safe Schools Helpline will stay. What TAP app is replacing is Rapid Responder. So that was an app that we found was very cumbersome and wasn't intuitive, and it didn't allow for two-way communication. With the TAP app, we worked with the founder and said, look, we had an incident in a nearby district last spring where they went into a lockdown and it was a live scene. Going back to our layers of communication, primary, secondary, and tertiary, people's natural impulse from surrounding districts was to reach out to that superintendent. We needed to know that if there's an incident in one of our neighboring or component districts, 911 can take over and put a message out to the other 10 or 11 schools, if you include BOCES, and let us know what's going on so that we can prepare adequately for that and then communicate again, because our closest car response from the sheriff's department, we very well could lose our deputies for the day. So the rapid responder did not have that capability. This one does. Yeah. Anything else? Anything for the community, Mrs. Loeffler?
Good.
All right, perfect. Am I still doing okay with safety?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, and one of the other pieces that I'll go back to with the physical structures, we did have a SPRI community member come in and test our security system this spring. She did give me an A- on the hardware. I will let that community member know that we are still working on replacing those elementary doors, and we will fix the high school door as well. So thank you. I'm going to ask that our assistant principals come up, and they're going to take over and share the code of conduct with you as part of our second public hearing. Thank you.
I want to thank the board for having us here tonight. So I'm Joe Bernard, elementary assistant principal.
Disciplinary Chapter, High School. Mark, why don't you bring up class?
So just a little background, the current code of conduct has been revised, this past August, applied to all schools and conducts. And really the goal here is to make the code of conduct relevant to our students, our staff, and our community members. This is a list of important terms that you'll see throughout the document, and will be talked about in the focus of this year. So some changes that happened that occurred in the document. There's a big focus this year with DASA. Our team has been working. We've changed around some of the reporting forms. They have a lot more accessible to electronic forms. We've incorporated some numbers that will be setting up some of the DASA processes in the buildings. And then that communication will follow a chain of command that we also let the superintendent know about. Our dress code, you'll see some language in there about hoods and the midriff. Really, the situation with the hoods is it really affects student learning. So we're really trying to target and limit wearing hoods as we've seen it as a way for students to disengage from the overall learning that's happening in the building. And then the midriff is just a distraction to students and that's present. For the code of conducting and engaging themselves with others, there's real focus on behavior that's intentionally or unintentionally causes risk, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional well-being to oneself or to others in the building as well.
So some other things that we really took a look at, we wanted to make sure that our code of conduct was in line with school tools so that we were accurately listing the infractions, and we needed to kind of change some language around, add some new things. So as far as possession of disruptive items, Bluetooth speakers have become very popular with students. So they can have them in their backpacks or on their person, and we were starting to hear more and more music in the lunchroom, and the lavatories, and going down the hall. So we really wanted to explicitly ban any of those Bluetooth personal speakers during the school day. And Joe just talked about some of the students using hoods as a way to disengage from the learning process. Blankets are another thing that we've seen in the hallways, kind of throw blankets around their shoulders. And it's an opportunity for students just not to be present throughout the day. And also it's a very casual feel. It's not representative of what we're doing in the high school. So blankets won't be permitted as well. Part of the school, we distinguished. In the old code of conduct, we had just the word target. And in the school tool, you could list if the student was targeted. We wanted to be able to drill down and see if the bigger issue was students coming late to school or late to class. So the way that we have it coded now, specific late to class and late to school, will allow us to really drill down. We'll be able to use that data when talking with students, when talking with families, working with our tier 2 team to put different interventions into place. We need to figure out why these students are not making it to school on time and not making it to class on time. If we're not in class, we're not learning. So that's going to be a major focus throughout the year. We talked with our SLT team at the high school. I know the other schools are focusing on it as well. So hopefully we can get to the bottom of what's contributing to those targets. Non-sanctioned sale of goods. There were some students that were making a little money on this, selling water, chips, candy. They were advertising that I got water, I got Funyuns, whatever you need, and they were selling that. So we want to make sure that things are part of our approved fundraising if they're being sold in school. And it's a safety concern as well. We can't assure the safety of any product that a student is selling. So we're going to be kind of clamping down on those non-sanctioned sales. Alternative instruction, these are things that we're kind of continuing to focus on. Making sure that any kid who's not in school has the appropriate instruction that they need individual to that student. We want to make sure that we're following the parameters that are in place when law enforcement is involved, keeping the families involved when that's necessary. And the safety plans, language has been added that we're going to have opportunities to meet together. We meet both at the building level and as a district-wide team. I know that there's members of the board that have been involved in that process from time to time, and a standing member as well. That allows us to kind of head off things that we're identifying as potential problems. It's great for us to kind of collectively get together with community members, board members, teachers, and administrators to really look at potential issues and hopefully head them off before they become actual issues.
Check. Okay, some disciplinary considerations. So these are pretty standard. These are things that we consider when we're giving a consequence. There's no black and white solution always, there's recommendations, but when we're giving a consequence, there are some things we need to consider: the student's age, the nature of the offense, the circumstances which led to it, student's prior disciplinary record, the effectiveness of other forms of discipline, information from parents, teachers, and or others, and other extenuating circumstances. So no different than even as in the court of law, you consider all the circumstances before you will issue any sort of disciplinary consequence. And as a reminder as well, the range of consequences, 3 levels. Number 1 will range anywhere from a warning or a loss of privilege, letting the parent know, short detention. To step up from there, and often for repeated offenses, could be an extended detention, which will take you up until about 5 or up to 5 o'clock. That's going to sting. Suspension from any transportation and other suspensions as well. And obviously, level 3 is going to be our highest disciplinary issues in terms of long-term suspension, and in a very rare case, perhaps a permanent suspension. Support and implementation. So the Board of Education, part of their obligation is to support in-service education for staff and to help ensure effective implementation of the code of conduct. So just a few highlights here. Safe and supported school climate. We continue to use safe schools to train all staff on major issues. And I want you to know that as well, on district opening day, that we have a brother and sister team coming into the district who mission in life is to lift people up and to inspire and to build empathy in others. And they're going to come and they're going to get us excited, and they're going to make us feel really good about this school year. And if you have not heard of Love Chromosome, the brother-sister team, the brother was an athlete who had some kind of internal bleeding and ended up in a coma and being paralyzed on the left side of his body for some time, and had to overcome some of that. His sister has Down syndrome, and the whole premise is, you'll be hearing more about it, is that they say she has an extra chromosome, but her grandfather told her, actually, you have the right number of chromosomes. We all are missing a chromosome, and the extra one you have is actually a love chromosome. And you'll see that their main slogan is, I love my life. So that's very cool. Looking forward to that. Discouraging harassment, discrimination, and bullying. DASA training, again, safe schools training for all staff, but as a leadership team as well, we have DASA training. Our district lawyer came to us over the summer, gave us updates on the law, and making sure that we're doing, carrying out the law faithfully when we do investigations, and that we're in full compliance. From a responsive classroom standpoint, for classroom management, what we utilize in responsive classroom, which is really a student-centered approach to teaching the practices of social emotional learning, as well as really hitting at the heart of why behaviors are happening for students, getting to the heart of that, and how to restore those behaviors to keep them in the classroom, in the learning environment.
Good evening. To talk about athletics and extracurricular components. So that applies to all our scholastic programs and our extracurricular activities. The current code was revised this August, and the goal of that is similar to the content for students is to provide relevant information for our students and staff, particularly for the conduct. And I'll share a few slides with you. A lot of it was just more detail on what was going on in changes, but academic eligibility, really that stayed the same. There wasn't any change to the criteria for the probation and eligibility process, but we did find the grade reporting periods that athletes and extracurricular student students reach out for each of the following the policy attendance. This is one thing that did change. We heard about targeted school quite a bit, targeted class. So, first period starts at 7:45. If you walk in at 7:46, you are targeted to class, and you get 2 of those per season. In the third one, you don't get to participate in this. So, we give students a little bit of leeway there, but be on time. And that's something that we want our student athletes to do. To kind of practice in games. They need to be students first, and athletes second. We did change some citizenship standards. Before it was just the conduct. It's a definition. We changed that to the good citizenship, and consequences for those infractions were defined and verbal warning to suspension. 15. DASA was part of our extracurricular code of conduct, but we enhanced that a little bit and included some of the specific behaviors to DASA and really defined the reporting process. So it's very clear when things to occur. Due process, there was a due process was part of the code of conduct. We updated that a little bit, so it's very clear about how students can follow due process and the format for the review council that would hear that due process. And lastly, substance abuse violations. That was adjusted slightly, so there was before there was 3 penalties we had before. So if there's a first offense, there's a 20% suspension. Second offense is a 60% suspension. The third is a school year, and fourth, no longer eligible. And some leniency clauses for students that are upfront and honest about situations, and the goal is to support students and hopefully get them participating in something children. That is our update to the code of conduct. Any questions that you can ask my colleagues and myself?
Push the button.
Yes, no, yeah, okay. 2.5. And the percentage, 30%, 60%, for the sports
Season, yeah.
for the season. Okay, thank you. The other is, I was trying to find this on the website. Where's local on the website? The athletic code is right, so it's up there, it's on the athletic page. It's one of the, it's down, some on the side, and there's a bottom piece, it's on the bottom. Okay, so good, thank you. I'll look again. I was trying to find it. Thank you. Jason, hoodies. Wear a hoodie or you can't wear the hood off.
The hood up. Yeah, that's a great distinction.
Thank you.
Next question. If a student appeals, who do they appeal to, and who is the judge to overturn or do whatever?
Sure. For the extracurricular and athletics, there's a committee. It's 2 administrators, a coach, some students, and it's the final member. The student in question, their parents can state the claim to that committee. That committee comes back and makes the recommendation to uphold just the disciplinary action. If that's not suitable, then they run to the principal, and then the superintendent, and ultimately to the place.
The revised rules about blankets, the hoodies and the substance selling. How are the parents going to be notified and the students notified in a reasonable time? And will there be a gap time in there? All right, so as they walk in, not all students and parents are going to recognize this, and there are going to be challenges.
Yeah, so we're going to send home at the beginning of the year. Students are all going to meet, and they're going to sign a form that they kind of acknowledge the tweaks that we've made, the policy. We're going to explain to them why it's important, how it detracts from learning and the seriousness of what we're doing. So anytime that we have a violation from that point on, there'll be an opportunity to contact home and say, you know, just like the fact that we talked about this is still an issue. Let's work together as a school and at home to kind of promote some behaviors that impact our learning and make sure that kids aren't kind of being so casual that they're not focusing on it.
Additionally, they will go through the code of conduct with students in person through a town hall or a grade level meeting, whether it's in a homeroom setting or in a large group setting. So those conversations will be occurring. And then in terms of, you had talked about the gap and the delay. Obviously, we understand it's not going to be perfect, but it is something that we are going to try and address because, again, the disengagement, whether students under the influence, you didn't see sunglasses in there, but those will also be deterred as well, because we know that the primary reason we're here is for teaching and learning. And a lot of times when a kid throws their hood up, they're trying to disengage. You know, so there will be conversations. There will certainly be students that are handled in both an appropriate and sensitive way if there's something going on. So there is latitude for the administrators to use, but when it comes to widespread disengagement and opposition of defiant behavior, those things will certainly be addressed in a timely fashion. And we do expect there will be some resistance, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, we've been talking about the tardiness throughout the summer. That's something that we started to spread through the buildings last spring. And then we also know with our upcoming opening of staff, staff will be encouraged to address these issues as well, because it's like we said in the previous hearing, that safety discipline is not just solely the responsibility of the building administrators as well. It's a collective effort. Are there any other questions? Any from the community? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Members, before we start the meeting, and do anything need a break? Thank you, Bill. Okay. Then at this time, I will call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to this board meeting. I'm Susan Collier, president of the Rose-Wolcott School Board of Education. We welcome visitors and are happy to have you with us tonight. First order of business, is there a motion, please, to approve tonight's agenda? Tina and Jason, Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. The motion is approved. At this time, the board may have time for access to the board by anyone who'd like to speak. But do we have anyone there? Thank you. No one has signed up, so we will proceed. Right on to the consent agenda. A motion, please, to approve the consent agenda. Linda and Shelley, discussion. The consent agenda goes through page 6 at the top. Paul?
Yes, Mr. President, I'm not sure what the correct policy is, but I'd like to either discuss F and G or pull it from the consent agenda.
Which one?
Separately.
Which one,
I'm
please?
sorry, consent agenda, item F and G.
That is fine.
Yeah, that's the district-wide school safety plan and the code of conduct.
Oh, F and G, both of them?
Yes, please, F and G.
If you want to discuss them, we will pull them out for discussion after we vote on the consent agenda. Are there any other questions or discussions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda minus F and G? All in favor? Motion is carried. We now go back and do F and G separately. A motion, please, to approve the district-wide school safety plan and building level emergency response plan. Motion, please. I need a motion before you can discuss it. Linda? John? Motion is on the floor. Discussion?
I'm just reluctant to approve something that I haven't been able to read. So that's why I wanted to pull. So we need to discuss it or vote on it.
Okay. Any discussion? Linda? You were closer.
One direction side. I guess my question, just for clarification is there any further information that we would get that wasn't presented tonight? Because some of it we really should not be getting.
No.
In terms of the emergency plan, so there isn't any.
There is not.
Other than what was presented.
That's correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? The motion on the floor is to approve the district-wide school safety plan and building level emergency response plan. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-1. Now a motion please to approve the code of conduct and the athletic code of conduct. Motion please. Gina, second. Shelley? Now discussion, questions? Paul?
Again, it's been my experience that I just shouldn't be signing something that I haven't been able to read. And I appreciate the updates by the individuals. And I think it was a good update, but again, I haven't been able to read the document, so I'm reluctant to approve. I'm not saying anything about it, I just haven't been able to read.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Hearing none, motion on the floor is to approve the code of conduct and the athletic code of conduct. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The motion carries 6-1 in favor of approval. Please turn to page 6 of your agenda. Number 4, A motion, please, to put on the floor, appoint district MTSS personnel. Motion, Paul, second, Linda. Discussion. John, do you want to make a statement?
I didn't know I had to make a statement, but I would have to abstain to be close relative.
Oh, then hearing no other discussion. No. Okay, thank you. Yes?
Yes.
Abstain.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And now the, number. What was number one and two? I'm sorry. And now, the motion to approve number 3 to appoint district MTSS personnel. Number 3. I motion say. Thank you, Shelley. Motion, please, Paul and Jason. Any other discussion? Yes.
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 Say. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. That completes our agenda so far. Does anyone have good news? The fact that school is starting is good news, right? Paul?
I've got good news. We typically cut out the documents from the Lakeshore News, and I've got a couple tonight that I'd like to address. One is for our new principal, and our 2 new vice principal. So we need Lakeshore News. Congratulations. Good news from our students. These are actually students that have graduated from Rose-Wolcott. This is the RIT. This is RIT graduate. So Eric Thompson from Wolcott is graduated from RIT. Students on the Clark University and presidential scholars, Helen Rose-Wolcott, who I think she's also graduated, if I recall from my last semester. Kind of rich from Wolcott is also on the presidential scholar. And then Mike Jackson is on the honor. Students on the dean's list at RIT, Lucy Zhang from Wolcott, and I think she was our salute from. A couple more graduates, Karen House of the North Rose, and then this is for National Guard promotions. Alexis Clarkson of North Rose was promoted to rank of sergeant. So all of those folks are doing well as graduates. We had some swimmers receive recognition at the All County League for swimming. Matthew Cole and Kobe Dalton. Mark Linderson won, 3 crews. Matthew Cole, Kobe Dalton. And three freshmen, Matthew Davis, also all had honorable mention there for members of the all league recognition program. Congratulations.
Thank you, Paul. Always good to know that the good things that are happening to our students. Always good to know that the good things that are happening to our students, present and past, are being advertised and the community knows about it. Thank you. Now that completes our agenda, we do need to go into executive session to discuss a legal matter. We will not be conducting any business when we return, simply adjourn the meeting. So a motion please to go into executive session to discuss a legal matter. Tina and any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. If any of you want to stay and come back in for the adjournment, feel free to go into the middle school cafeteria. Okay, otherwise, everybody. The board will take 5 minutes.